You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbit, and today we are continuing our dive into the history of Night Demon. This is Roots of the Demon, Part 2. Last week, we talked about the three current members, Dusty, Armand, and Jarvis, the three current members of Night Demon, how they got into music, their first instruments, how they got into metal, and we talked a bit about their first bands. And today we're going to pick it up in 1993 with the formation of Jarvis's first band. And once again, Metallica plays a huge role.
I had kind of gone through my allowance and I had about $100 actually. So for at that age and at that time, that was a gold mine. And I remember getting turned on to Headbangers Ball shortly after that. And I was at my friend Chris David's house down the street, and I had borrowed my dad's Gibson SG, and his dad had a guitar too. And we actually filmed ourselves pantomiming to Iron Maiden's Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. I wonder if that tape's around somewhere. I'm sure he has it. But the rock star dreams were already happening then, and we didn't, we weren't pretending that we knew how to play the song. But I digress. Anyway, I was watching Headbangers Ball one Saturday night, and Metallica was on, and they were talking about the release of their box set, their live box set, Live Shit, Binge and Purge, and it was supposed to be coming out that following day. It was like a special release, I guess. And so actually, it wouldn't have been the following day because that would have been a Sunday. But I do remember, and records don't come out on Sundays, but I think it was a Tuesday. And I do remember we were on Thanksgiving break, so it means we were off of school for a week. And I had my grandfather drive me to Music Plus, and I had my $100, and the box set was like $85, and I bought it. And man, that thing, I wore this thing out. It had 3 VHS tapes, 3 CDs, and this big booklet of their entire tour on the Black Album. And that's when I discovered, whoa, shit, Metallica's much better than I ever even thought. Discovering the back catalog, I had never heard the studio albums. I had heard them live for the first time on the tours that they were doing in the early 90s on that Live Shit box set. So really, that kicked things up to the highest level. That's when I really knew, okay, I'm forming a band, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't care how it has to happen. I want to do this just like these guys. I want to have that kind of power. I want to have that kind of creativity, and I want to have that kind of energy, and I want to send that kind of message. It was exact. There was nothing about it there was no aspect that I did not agree with.
So Jarvis is inspired again by Metallica. He decides music is his future. He decides to start a band with friend Mike Mall. Now, Mike and Jarvis go way back.
Hi, my name is Michael Mall, and I production manage bands in the live music industry. I currently work for the band Vampire Weekend. Wow, man, Jarvis and I go way back. 1988, second grade. Jarvis was new to the school, so it was his first day, and I believe he was crying when he got dropped off, bummed out, new school, and I felt like, yo, dude, don't be so sad, and wanted to be his buddy right off the bat, and it kind of worked out like that. We were fast friends from second grade on, You could easily say we were cut from the same cloth, so to speak. We both came from broken homes. It was the fucking 80s, man. I think that really brought us together in our friendship. Throughout those formative years, we stayed close. We had sleepovers, school detentions together. We were into sports. And then music became a huge part of our lives. Jarvis definitely had the better intro to music through his parents' personal taste than I did. My dad was into like oldies on the radio, like the Beach Boys and stuff like that. Motown, I mean, that was a big influence for me, that kind of music. And Jarvis was already introduced to the darker side of rock and roll through his dad's record collection. Ozzy, Sabbath, AC/DC, stuff like that. And even his aunt on his mom's side was really influential for him. Gave him some pretty rad records at an early age. I remember being introduced to the Misfits for the first time, driving out to the very first Ozfest with Jarvis. His dad was taking us there, and I think that was the first time I listened to that band and was blown away by how they were still kind of melodic. Because like I said, my upbringing was more on the melodic side of music and oldies and Motown and that genre. And so I was like, wow, I can really, really get into this stuff. So right around this time, I remember spending the night at his mom's house, late at night, shooting the shit, just being kids, talking about weird stuff, and deciding that we want to be in a band.
Yeah, so we just could not decide on a name. I think we were called Toxic Semen, but then we, thought that wasn't accessible. There's no way we're going to play the Lutheran School talent show with a name like that. There's just no way. And then we called ourselves Propane, and we spelled it like PRO-PAIN. And then combing through the record stores, we found there was already a band called Propane. So
the very first name that we come up with for this band is Toxic Semen, which I still think is a great name. But through this conversation, he brings up that his dad used to be in a band when he was younger.
The name Black Opal came from my dad's old band. So my dad was in a band when he was in junior high in late 60s, early 70s with none other than Michael Anthony from Van Halen. And they were called Black Opal. So he and my dad were really tight friends growing up. And much in the same way, they kind of learned to play together in bands. And that was their first band. And they had done like some school dances and stuff. And they had actually won a battle of the bands at Arcadia Junior High. Dana Junior High in Arcadia. And I actually have a newspaper article of that. It's very cool that they were in the paper then.
I even think he pulled out like the news clipping from the 60s of them talking about his band, and the band was called Black Opal. And of course we were looking for something dark, on the darker side, heavier sounding band name. And that name we kind of just went with that. And Mike Anthony from Van Halen was in that band with his dad, so that made it even cooler for us at the time to pick that band name.
But I think we were just lost at that point, and we took my dad's first band's name and with his blessing, and that's what happened.
All right, so now we're in a band together, just the two of us. But it felt like we had accomplished something. It felt really good to come up with the name, to have a band to say that you're in, go around school, be proud, we're in a band together, yada, yada, yada. But I don't play anything at the time. And my stepdad was a jazz musician. He played collegiate jazz, saxophone for Cal Poly back in the 50s. And he had a drum set in his office at the home. And I don't think I was really allowed to play it at the time, but I knew of it, and I knew that I would want to play drums in this band. So I told him to get that drum set back because he had given it away. So we had to full on go back to the kid that he had given it to and go and get it back.
I actually remember going to this kid's house with Mike, and we got the drum set back and took it to my parents' garage and I mean, this thing was like, it was a pretty shitty drum kit. But I mean, we were beginners and we didn't know what we were doing. It was something and it made noise when you hit it.
So now I have a drum set, and it's nothing to write home about. It's a real piece of shit drum set. No back resonant heads on it. Maybe kick, snare falling over on the shitty stand, one rack tom, or maybe two rack toms rack mounted into the piece of shit kick drum, and a floor tom that was falling over. And maybe, if I remember correctly, like a splash crash cymbal and some hats that were falling over, didn't open and close. Something like that. So we've got what we need to start a band, and it was pretty awesome. I think the first thing we did was try to cover "For Whom the Bell Tolls" by Metallica.
And we started, hey, let's play Metallica, "For Whom the Bell Tolls." Let's just do that. The fucking and that's kind of how it all started. Just playing the intro to that, and slowly learning together how to do this. And I mean, the learning curve when you start is crazy high, but there's a lot of progress that happens in the early days if you stick to it, for sure. But it's pretty daunting because you're hearing Metallica do it, and then you're hearing yourself do it on the worst gear with no experience and no skill. And it's just, oh man, it's very disheartening, but still we knew we were onto something. We knew the joy that we felt just creating this noise. And I remember Mike's dad came to pick him up. He came to pick him up after our first jam session, and he was like, "Oh man, why don't you guys play some oldies, man? I mean, this what's up with this ruckus noise kind of?" And we were just like, "Man, that's just another thing. Like, you don't understand, Dad. The youth rebelling. There's something about it. There's something very sexy about that when you're young, is just going against the grain, against the status quo of any kind of authority. And heavy metal did that for us."
Now word's out in our class that we're in this band, and we're probably going around talking about it way too much. And one of our buddies wants to join the band, Doug Clark.
We don't know anybody that plays bass. I mean, what kid plays bass? Especially back then, it was just such like an undesirable kind of instrument. So here comes Doug Clark, and he's saying, "Hey, I heard you need a bass player." And we're like, "Yeah, but you don't play bass." Conversation kind of died there. I think the following week, he had called me one night on a school night and said, "Hey, do you want to hang out this weekend?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And we'd never really hung out outside of school unless it was like a friend's birthday party or something like that. So he asked to come over, and I said, "Yeah, cool. Mike's going to be here on Saturday." So he ended up coming over, and he came over with a fucking bass guitar. And we couldn't believe it, man. He came over with a bass guitar, and it was like a Fender Jazz Bass copy. And I believe it was missing a string. I think the A string was gone. And he came over and he had this bass, and he said he bought it in the recycler, and he showed us the newspaper article, and it said bass, B-A-S-E, not B-A-S-S, how a bass guitar is really spelled. And it was $75. I remember that. And he bought the bass, man. The motherfucker bought the bass and showed up with the bass. That was his way of saying, "I'm going to rock in this band with you guys," and that's it. So now here we are, 3 guys in a band, in a Christian school, in a heavy metal band. We're a 3-piece band, much like Night Demon. Kind of funny how that works out, right? Our thing was, we started to take this really seriously, and it was something that we really, really, really wanted to do. And we wanted to do it more than anything else in our lives. So everything else took a backseat, and I mean everything. Between the 3 of us, we really started to expand our music collection. So we would go to thrift stores, we would go to yard sales, again, look in the recycler for people selling off their music collections. If it was too late to be playing music in the garage, we would just walk to the liquor store or walk around town, walk around the neighborhood, and, with the boombox and just listen to music, or we would listen to music in our bedrooms, hanging out with each other, or we would watch horror movies, or we would go to the video rental store and rent like Iron Maiden's Live After Death, or like heavy metal concerts. We would watch live Ozzy or Van Halen, things like this, and Metallica, of course. But that's when we really, really started to broaden our horizons, and we started to have a lot more access to music because we were actively seeking it out. We really started to kind of discover, like, hey, there's a lot more diverse stuff out there, and we need to really kind of just learn a lot of different stuff. And that's what we did. So the St. John's Lutheran Talent Show was coming up.
And our goal for that year, this was our 8th grade year, was to play in the school talent show. So we were going to do something special for this school, our conservative school. We were going to play Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols.
We were going to do this because we had heard Megadeth do this song on the album So Far, So Good, So What. And Doug had the tape for that record. And we really, really listened to that record a lot that year. And we thought, we could hardly fucking play our instruments. I mean, really. We had just started, basically. And we thought that this song we could kind of pull off. I mean, it was kind of the easiest one to do. So, fuck it. We just went for it. We went for it. I remember me and Doug looking across from each other before we went on, and man, I was just so nervous, and like I just crossed my fingers, like, here we go. We went up and played the song, the best we could, and it sounded terrible.
They've only been playing together for about 4 months, but they play very well together for only being together that long. I'd like to announce for the first time in concert, Black Opal. We never played in front of a crowd, so we're a little nervous, so bear with us, all right?
And everything goes really well. We play the song. Jarvis plays the solo for a Metallica song in the middle of Anarchy in the UK. So we change it up a little bit just to really showcase our talents. And at the end of the song, he says St. John's will be destroyed instead of the lyric, which also just made us full of pride, and it was an amazing, fun experience for anyone at that age.
A funny thing I can remember about that night is after the show, we all stayed at my parents' house that night, and during our normal walk through the neighborhood at night listening to metal, we went over to our friend Kelly Sensabaw's house, who lived like 4 or 5 blocks from me. And she had a CD there that her mom had. Her mom had bought like the Time Life collection of music or something. And, this month's CD was about punk rock. And it had like 20 songs on it from classic punk bands. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Can I borrow this? And she said, yes. And I look on the back, and what's the first track? Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols. And so, again, here we are, not knowing that wasn't a Megadeth song. And we had just played it that night. And I remember putting it on and just going, wow. I mean, I was really blown away. I really did like the Sex Pistols version a lot. So now at this point, we've played our first gig. Well, we played one song. But we had our first public performance. And so that was a big step for us and definitely increased that hunger for being a band. And so we went off to high school. That was it. We were done with St. John's. So Mike Mall and I decided to go to a public school. Most people from the school went straight to another private school, to a Catholic school called Santa Clara High School. But me and Mike went to Oxnard High School, and man, what an eye-opening. It was like we're all of a sudden around thousands of people, and we don't matter. We don't mean shit. So it took a little while to get our bearings there, but it was definitely an exciting time. Not having to wear a uniform to school, being able to wear a metal shirt to school, God, that was fucking amazing. It was great. I mean, I got to tell my mom, like, hey, I need more metal shirts. It's like I need school clothes, right? I mean, that was just crazy. It was awesome. It was really liberating, I should say. You know, it wasn't before too long that we found the few metalheads that went to the school and the punks that were there too. And we found our people, just as you do. So Doug's over at Santa Clara High School. Me and Mike are at Oxnard. And we're still jamming pretty much daily. And Doug meets this kid in one of his classes named Ron Baldwin.
Hey everyone, this is Ron Baldwin, and my connection to Black Opal was through their bass player, Doug Clark. Doug Clark and I met on the very first day of high school. He was the very first person I met in high school, and so we got to know each other pretty quick, and I found out that Doug played bass. I told him I played guitar, and he asked me if I wanted to come jam with his band sometime, and so I did.
I mean, for us to have a second guitar player, I mean, that's the goal. I mean, that's what we wanted to do. Metallica had 2 guitar players. We need 2 guitar players. Megadeth had 2 guitar players. We need 2 guitar players. So we need to be doing harmony leads. Iron Maiden had 2 guitar players. Same thing. So Ron comes over and we jam in Mike Mall's parents' garage, I remember.
So he invites him over to my house where we've been practicing in the garage, and he comes over and plays with us, and he is an absolute shredder at 14 years old. It was pretty amazing to see. His name is Ron Baldwin.
And I mean, it was just amazing. This guy was amazing. He was probably the nicest guy I've ever met, but he had incredible skill and an incredible musical ear.
And I remember showing up to that first practice and meeting the guys, meeting Jarvis and Mike Mall, and being totally impressed. You know, they had Metallica shirts on, and they listened to the same music I listened to. I remember Jarvis had long hair, which blew me away, because at that time it wasn't, really the in thing, but they were just we were, of the same ilk. And at the end of that first practice, I don't really remember what we played. I think it was probably some Metallica covers, and I think they taught me a couple of their originals. And at the end of rehearsal, they asked me if I'd like to join the band, which I wasn't expecting, but I was thrilled and immediately said yes. And that's how I started playing with Black Opal.
From then on, it felt like anything was possible for us. We didn't have too much material of our own, and we actually just, were kind of known around school as like a Metallica cover band, which was fine with me. I mean, we were doing a lot of different stuff. But, once Ron got in the band, we started to experiment with things like we were playing like Metallica's Nothing Else Matters, things where we were like, hey, let's try and play something a little more musical or something that involves some finger picking and stuff like this.
You guys are recording. Okay. Because Jeff sucks. Just kidding. Not that bad. Alright, nothing else matters.
So all through high school and all through the 90s, it was all about Black Opal for me. All we ever wanted to do was play gigs. I mean, that was really the goal. And it was just so difficult for us. There was a huge barrier to entry for us because, you know, we were young. We would try and put together press packets and stuff or make phone calls and just try and get as many gigs as we could, but we got nothing. I mean, I think we would probably average 3-4 gigs a year at best, especially in the early days, because, you know, we didn't know anybody and because we were young. But it was frustrating because we're practicing every day and we just want to play in front of some people. Mike Mall had left the band. Actually, we kicked him out of the band. And that was one thing. That was the first time that I've ever had to do anything like that. It was a hard thing to do that to your best friend. But I mean, I don't think he was taking it as seriously as we were and wasn't progressing. But again, you know, I don't know. Maybe looking back on it, maybe we should have given him the opportunity, you know? I mean, maybe that probably would have been the right thing to do and really just remained tight as a unit of friends and pushed each other in a more positive way. But we didn't do that.
Like I said, I didn't stay in the band very long after that. I was not practicing, not doing everything that I possibly could to become a really good heavy metal / rock drummer at that time. For me, I was not really into the practice, and everything that we wanted to try seemed a little bit too advanced for my skill set at that time. So it was discouraging me, and I would rather watch a movie or TV instead of going out in the garage and practicing. So I hold some grudges, obviously, but it doesn't last long because we are good friends. I stay friends with everybody, hang out at their practices, help them with gear, become like their first roadie. Like, we're buddies. It's no bad blood between us.
We ended up getting this guy, Matt Hastings, who we had gone to school with, who was a year younger than us, who we grew up with at the Christian school. And he was a great drummer. And he came in and played Aces High from Iron Maiden and nailed it. And we're like, okay, that's it. You know, that's what we need. And so we ended up making a demo. Matt's dad knew this guy, Dave. I still don't know his last name, but he had just a 2-track recorder and went to 2-track DAT digital tape. We had set up the band in my parents' garage. He mic'd everything up and he wanted us to play live and because it was a 2-track, he had no way to overdub us because it had to be in stereo. So we couldn't overdub anything. And so here we are, and we've got a few original songs finally. We had a song called Lifeless Days. A song called The Unnameable, which was written based on the H.P. Lovecraft movie, H.P. Lovecraft story, The Unnameable, which was actually adapted into a movie that we really liked. and a song called 2012 that Ron had written about the end of the world. Nostradamus had predicted that December 21st, 2012 was the end of the world. So in 1996, we thought this was going to be something that was going to happen. And December 21st is also my mom's birthday and Ron's father's birthday. So we kind of thought that was cool. When we recorded this demo, we had to sing live, and I remember that the guy didn't have headphones for us. So we were basically jamming in the garage, listening to each other play, and we were singing into these microphones, not hearing our voice back. It was like the worst thing. And we thought, oh, this is so cool. We're finally going to be on a recording. But the guy kept telling us, it sounds great, it sounds great. So we were really happy about that until we got the tape back. So we did get the tape back, and he spelled the band name wrong on it and stuff. And we never replicated this to give to anybody. We did just dub copies for our press kits to try and get gigs, which was probably a mistake in hindsight because the tape is so bad. It's funny listening back to it. I haven't listened to it in years and years, but it's really cool. I mean, the spirit is there, and that's what I like. It's very pure, and it's a part of my life that I'll never be able to get back. But I'm glad, for whatever it's worth, that there are some recordings that capture that time.
So just a note for subscribers. On nightdemon.net, you can listen to the full demos of all these songs and more. There's video of Black Opal, a big photo gallery of images of the history of Black Opal, and even a picture of the Black Opal original demo with the name spelled wrong. So you can check all that out on nightdemon.net.
So about midway through high school, when we started getting to know more people and some more bands, that's when the gigs started to actually happen. But they were on a youth scale, I guess you could say. I mean, there was not another heavy metal band that existed in our scene. It was just us. We got a lot of respect from the punks just because we tried. We tried to play guitar solos. We tried to play double bass. We tried to do all those things. And they respected that. And everybody was into Slayer too. So we had the common ground, Slayer and Motorhead, things that like punks and metalheads both get into, or, the Misfits. So, that's kind of how that went for a really long time. There was one other band that was not punk and not metal. I guess you would consider them alternative rock at the time, and that was The Whereabouts. The Whereabouts and Black Opal played more gigs together than any bands. We were nothing alike, but we were just so different from everybody else. And we were friends. We got along really well. That's the way it just ended up going. And The Whereabouts was Armand's first band.
That was the band in high school, and that's how I met Jarvis again. Like, that's the band that we played shows together, many shows together. We played this little place called Laser Star in town. It was a laser tag place. Used to throw a lot of punk shows and stuff like that. And we were kind of the odd bands out, because there was a really big punk scene around here at the time. Still is. But, you know, Jarvis was in the more like kind of metal band, and my band was more of like the kind of like straight up rock and roll, like indie kind of thing before that really kind of took off, to be honest with you. We were doing a lot of that kind of stuff that became popular, way more popular later on after we had already kind of broken up and everything. It's kind of funny. But somehow we all got along and we were all friends and we all play shows together and it didn't matter. You know, it's funny because I always had the feeling that these hardcore tough guys, like no one liked our band, you know, because we were like, you know, we had songs with fucking slide guitar in it. We had songs with clean guitar, slower things, you know, prettier parts. And they were all about fast and the heavy breakdown so their buddies could mosh and beat each other up in the pit, you know. We had a little bit more going on than that. A little more songwriting and depth kind of shit. But it turns out all those guys loved us. They loved our band, you know, because we weren't the typical thing.
I loved the Whereabouts. I thought they were amazing. Again, they were like, you know, here you go. These are guys that can sing. They could do harmony vocals. The lead singer was good. He had good lyrics. Armand was a shredding guitar player. I thought Ian, their drummer, was really good. Baltazar, their bass player, he had a really, like, he was a real driving force, like, as far as getting the band shows and getting the band's name out there and stuff. And I took a lot of inspiration from him on like the business end of things. And, you know, here we were just basically a glorified Metallica cover band trying to be a heavy metal band way past our time. I mean, baggy jeans and rap were like way the mainstream in school at that time, and punk rock was it was a very cool guys thing, you know, and even the jocks were into it at the time. So like that had its thing, and girls were really into it too. I mean, but for metal, I mean, we were just way on the outs. And for the Whereabouts, like for alternative rock, I mean, I think it was just maybe too far removed, you know, because alternative rock at that time was either a very mainstream thing or it was a very underground thing. And I think they straddled that line. I mean, they sounded much like a lot of underground indie bands that hadn't been heard yet, and also kind of sounded like, you know, they could have hung with the Foo Fighters' first record. I really likened the Whereabouts to them. But yeah, so here we were. It's kind of funny that Armand and I did not play together in like a serious band until Night Demon. So until we were in our 30s, but we had connected. I mean, when we were 16 years old, and I think we both knew it was only a matter of time before that was going to happen. So. But we just didn't think it would be this long. I mean, our musical paths have crossed so many times. Our journeys are similar, and it's great to see how they connect. And there's much more to this story with he and I, and what happened with us musically throughout the years, and what we have done together. I mean, we have done a lot of fun things, fun musical projects and recording projects and tribute bands and stuff through the years just for fun. But we always had a serious band besides that. But at the time back then, I think like, you know, his focus was the Whereabouts and mine was Black Opal. I mean, when you're in your first band and you have this bond with your brothers and you're doing it for years, you feel like it's going to last forever, like a Metallica or an Aerosmith or something like that. Although you look at those bands, you know, guys that are in their first bands for decades and that's all they do. It's like there's so much that I think we've been fortunate to avoid by being in so many different bands, by having our tastes develop by playing different styles of music and playing with a bunch of different people. It makes us much better. So there's no regrets as far as that goes in hindsight. But when you're young and you're in it and you're in your first band, you always have that dream. You look back to the drum kit and you see your drummer, or you look and you see your bass player, or your singer, or your guitar player, and you're like, yeah, these are my guys. This is what we do. This is our life. And there's no looking back. And I got to be honest, when I'm on stage with Armand and Dusty these days, I mean, it doesn't matter how many other bands I play in, or they play in. When I look at those guys, that's exactly how I feel. These are my guys. This is our life. This is what we do. And this is what we're going to be remembered for. So as high school rolled along, Black Opal rolled along, well, we putted along. And, you know, Ron ended up having to leave the group. And we got another guitar player named Mike Smith. He ended up leaving the group as well. And it just went back to a three-piece, and it was me and Doug Clark and Matt Hastings. And that's how we ended. And unfortunately, you know, I mean, in the last year of the band, in 99, we started to get a lot of gigs. It just started to happen, and we started to get much better as a band. and we were recording a lot better stuff, and our sound had totally evolved. It was a much harder sound, but it was something that definitely the hardcore punk scene was a big influence on us. So meshing that with metal, I think there was a lot of things we were doing that were maybe ahead of our time. But unfortunately, the journey of Black Opal was prematurely cut short. On June 2nd, 1999, when Doug Clark died in an automobile accident. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was at the grocery store doing some shopping for some catering for the artist John Prine. I had dropped out of high school earlier that year. I had gotten serious about doing concert promotion, and I had been promoting shows at the Ventura Theater. And for the shows that I didn't book, I was still working as a runner, a caterer, security, load-in, basically anything I could do to get closer to the bands and real touring bands and just the industry and just be around it and experience all of it. So I was out there doing that day, and my door guy, Dave Anduri, I saw him in the grocery store, and I was like, whoa, dude, what are you doing here? And he walked up to me with this terrible look on his face, and he says, we got to go. And I don't remember too much after that, but I do remember showing up at St. John's Hospital in Oxnard and seeing Mike Mall's dad in tears and just giving me a big hug. I had no idea what was going on or what had happened, but Mike was pretty fucked up, and he was thrown out from the car, 40, 50 feet. His shoes came off. The impact was so hard.
So right around this time, 2-3 days from our high school graduation, we get out of school early those days because you're taking your finals. You get out around lunchtime, and Doug has a 1964 Ford Falcon, and he has really, really souped this thing up like to the nines. It is a fast car, and he's into driving it fast. So anyways, we finish our finals that day, June 2nd, 1999, finish our finals, get in his car, decide we're going to go to the other high school across town, the one that Jarvis is at, but I don't think he's in school anymore. So we're going to go see some of our other friends. I probably have some love interest over at that school. And we head over there, and on the way there, we're literally 3 blocks away from this high school. We get parked at a red light next to a Nova, old 60s Nova, and it's time to rev the engines and do all that bullshit thing. And the light turns green, they both gun it, the Nova speeds off. We're going probably, 80, 90 is what the report said, before we lose control somehow, still unknown, and the car swerves a couple times up on the median curb, down, and right back into the median into a palm tree. It was a pretty massive palm tree too. It was, fully established thing. Taproot goes down, I don't know how far, very far. And, if you hit a palm tree going 10 miles per hour, you're going to fuck your car up. And we hit it going 90. And so Doug was killed instantly, yeah. And I went kind of through the windshield, kind of not all the way through. I don't know if my lap belt was on. I don't know if it was loose and I came through it or what, but face through the windshield, broken bones instantly. And that was how things went down 2 days before my high school graduation. And a defining moment for my life, for sure, and how we lost Doug.
And that was the end. That was the end of the band. His parents had encouraged me to continue on with the name, and, said that that's the way Doug would have wanted it. But, I knew Doug better than anybody. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have wanted it that way, but he would understand why I couldn't carry on without him. We were the two OGs still left in that band, and that band had died with him, and I'm okay with that. We did a benefit show that month at the Ventura Theater to help out with some of the funeral costs, and it went really well. There was a ton of support from the community, and I had never seen that many people at a funeral. I mean, the funeral was at St. John's Church, which was, where we grew up. That school was right next door to it, and it was tied to the church, and, it was kind of like going back to that place after years of not being there. It was a real strange feeling, but, to lay him to rest there, I guess seemed right. And, you couldn't even seat people in there. It was overflowing to the outside. So many people came to show their support for, somebody that had just turned 18 5 days prior to that, and, had his whole life ahead of him and left a really big impact on those who knew him. So the benefit show went really well, and Armand's band, The Whereabouts, played, and I actually they have a song called Mid Ballad. I used to do this harmony part on with them live, and so I did that. That was cool. The Missing 23rd also played, which also featured, the singer of that band is John Criar, who was also in Night Demon in the early days, which we'll get into shortly in the future here about how pivotal his role was in Night Demon. And of course, the Ventura Theater, Black Opal played countless shows there. So did The Whereabouts. Screams in the Night videos filmed there. Welcome to the Night performance parts are filmed there. That place has a lot to do with our musical history. So, we had a lot of donations for the benefit. Even like Metallica stepped up, and that was cool. And they had heard about it, and they had donated some merch for a raffle that we were doing. So it was really cool. It was really impressive. I still look back on the show poster and see all the names involved, and it's just something even 21, 22 years later that still gets me. But Doug Clark, may he rest in peace. And we thank you for allowing us to be a part of your life and for being such a big part of ours.
So that's the story of Black Opal. It's an important part of the Night Demon story, a tragic ending to the band, but it sets Jarvis off on a path that would lead to Night Demon. And that's where we're headed next week with more of the history of Dusty, Armand, and Jarvis, and the seeds that would become the band that we know today as Night Demon. So, if you listened to this episode and heard about these kids starting out with their first bands, well, in the bonus section on nightdemon.net is pictures of The Whereabouts and Black Opal, full tracks and demos of all the clips you heard in this episode from both bands. Also, something really cool is there's a home video of Black Opal, including their first ever performance, which is Jarvis's first time on a stage. And there's also some very cool footage of Doug Clark. It's cool to see this early footage and put faces to all the people, especially after you've just heard the story. So until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Save me now, 'cause I'm losing all control. Save me now, death is knocking at my door. Save me now, Lucifer has got a hold. My soul is gonna burn in flames.
Oh no! Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net. Click on the subscriber tab and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time, all the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.